Wesley gives him some encouragement and a nudge in the right direction, and Morodoc completes the equation and beats out Wesley.
The way he said it is like, don't fight it, relax into it and let it come by itself. I'm like, oh God, my dirty mind went there.
Oh my.
Well, you can't just shove it in without lube or anything. You got to relax it first.
If it don't fit, don't force it, just relax and let it flow.
Perhaps I could use this as an excuse to go to those far-off planets with little polka-dotted people if necessary, and be able to talk about love, war, nature, God, sex, all those things that go to make up the excitement of the human condition.
This is Captain Jean-Luc Picard.
Welcome aboard.
Jean-Luc Picard to the starship Enterprise.
You want to review your rapid progress?
That nonsense is centuries behind us. To the starship Enterprise.
Oh, yeah?
That is enough, damn it!
Tempo, mon capitan.
To the starship Enterprise.
But you can't deny that you're still a dangerous, savage child race.
Of the planet Earth.
You just don't get it, do you, Jean-Luc? That is the exploration that awaits you. Not mapping stars and studying nebula, but charting the unknown possibilities of existence.
Peldor Joy, and welcome to Humanist Trek. It's a comedy Star Trek podcast about the humanism in Star Trek. I'm Sarah Ray.
And I'm Allie Ashmead.
And now we can finally talk about our trip to QuadCon in Omaha, Nebraska. We are really back this time.
Yeah, we're for real.
For real.
For real.
For real, for real. Oh, I also want to thank, before we get into that, I want to thank everybody for sending Christmas presents that Allie just now got to me.
I'm so sorry. Oh, that's really fucked up.
So Bruce and Sarah, thank you so much.
Sorry, Bruce. Sorry, Sarah.
Oh, it's so funny. I mean, Allie called me and was like, let me show you the things we got.
And then you'll get them eventually when I get up there.
So it took an away mission to Omaha, of all places, to get that to happen. We had such a great time.
Oh my God, it was so much fun from the drive up there, which was fairly adventurous because the Midwest was having some sort of windstorm roll through. And while semis were being rolled over in Texas, we were, I was just battling to stay on the road, and we're watching tumbleweeds go by. That was pretty fun.
I still want a picture of you holding one of those giant. I mean, these things were massive tumbleweeds.
Yeah. They were.
So the drive was there. We get to the hotel. Hotel's great. We didn't really do much that first night. We just pretty much crashed we watched some TV, but we crashed after that long, windy fucking drive. And then the next day we did our load in at the mall in Omaha. And Allie, this is your first mall con experience. What did you think?
Mall con
generally?
It was fun. It was fun.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really interesting venue to do this in a mall, because you're going to get people that meant to come to QuadCon, and then you're going to get people that just came to the mall and happened upon us and all the other stuff, and maybe they are interested in that world. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah. We had a good time. We met a lot of fun people. I got to have lots of fun making stupid away
mission videos.
Away mission logs. Well, I colored my hair purple, so when we did our lower deck stay, I was a Boimlerette. I was a Boimler of some kind from a different universe. And so I did a lot of stupid lower decks ensigns log. That was a good time.
We got to meet one of our new Patron members, Lieutenant Kolakowski, and he came by with his family.
Yeah.
So shout out to them for coming by. We took some pictures. We had lots of cool discussion. So it was really fun. We had lots of people coming by.
Yeah.
And wanting to know what we were. And then they were like, oh, I like Star Trek. I'm like, oh, really? Let me quiz you. And I was just having a blast with that. And they were all in. They were all into it.
A couple weird things happened on this trip for me. And one of them was like recognizing people that we had met 2 years ago when Becca and I went and did this event.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of freaky because I have this real shit memory. And like for me to get to the point of like, you look familiar, that takes a lot. That's a lot of my memory coming to the surface. But for me to then go, I know, I talked to you 2 years ago here at this thing. I know who you people are. That is the weirdest feeling.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of people, they said, oh, I remember you here 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And I wasn't there, but they remembered you. And they remembered Humanist Trek.
That's the second weirdest feeling, is people who already know who we are out in the wild. So normally when we table, you know, it's been growing the podcast. We don't have like, you know, a cluster of fans in a city that we can go hang out with or whatever. Like, so now we've done, you know, like an event in the same place multiple times and picked up listeners the first time who came back this time and were like, yeah, I know who Humanist Trek is. I'm one of your listeners. What?
I know.
What a weird feeling. So another fun story from this trip in between the two date, was it Saturday and Sunday?
Yeah.
Yeah. In between those two days of convention, of course, we go back to the hotel and I had a show to edit. I was like way the fuck behind on show production. And so we were going to be like out of there Sunday, stay the night, leave Monday. And I was going to go on to Illinois and do all of this yard work for my mom. So I wasn't going to have time. When the hell am I going to have time to edit the show? So we went back to the hotel.
We had downtime.
And I'm like, Allie, this will be fun because you don't get to hear what the editing process sounds like, where I listen to us say the same thing over and over again 3 or 4 times until I get it just the way I want it.
Yeah, it's so tedious. I'm so sorry. And so now I'm going to try to make an effort to not have to, for you not to have to go back.
As much. Yeah.
Oh, that's an edit shit. It was fun though, listening to it, and you know, we're just so funny.
I think so. We're also high a lot of the time, and when I'm high like that, I think everything's funny. And 2 things that we found absolutely fucking hilarious during that show edit was, one, I came up with this idea that this kid that played the instrument on the planet where the kids were abducted, it would be like little kids playing the recorder. I thought that was hilarious. We laughed
out of tune
so fucking hard. I was listening to all of these different clips.
We were laughing so hard. It was like, I'm like, that's perfect. That's it. That's the one. That's great.
And then we also laughed so hard because you know how hotels are set up, right? Like each room is a mirror of the next. And so that means that the layout of the rooms is headboard to headboard.
Let me go back. Hang on.
Okay,
hang
go
on,
back.
Because, so yeah, headboard to headboard, the rooms are like, chances are our wall is backed up against the next door's wall and their headboard is against ours.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say this hotel, I guess the walls and the floors were so thin that we heard everything, like kids running in another floor,
Mm-hmm.
like people walking, like we heard it all. And the night before, our first night, or actually that morning, do you remember? I kept hearing this little noise. I'm like, what is that noise? We were still just waking up and there was just like a noise. And I'm like, and I think we finally figured out that maybe that was the next door neighbors having sex. Do you remember that? Because there was like there was some sort of knocking. Yeah, but we weren't sure. So then cut to the next night. Saturday night? Right. You were editing and we were just cutting up. And then we hear it. It was like 8. It was early, 8, 9 at night. In the midst of us cracking up, we hear this knocking on the wall, and sort of a rhythm, but sort of not.
Not a good rhythm.
And we're like, "Are they having sex?"
Poorly.
And I was like, "Well, his rhythm's off." Yeah. And then we just crack up, and we're so loud. I'm thinking they've got to hear us,
right?
Anyway, we were just stupid.
Oh, such a good time, though. And looking forward to doing more. I'm always watching for cons that pop up that are like drivable. I will share that anytime we do events like that, we lose money every single time. And so, you know, the idea is just to go out and meet fans and find new fans and hopefully that pays off on the long term. And it's also, you know, just fun to get out and talk to people. So
thanks, guys. We really appreciate the support.
Absolutely. We talked a little bit about I don't even remember what episode and in what context, but I said something about when you're at a hotel, you always have to look at that evacuation map on the back of your door so that you know where you are and how the hell to get out, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember what context that conversation happened in, but it came to my mind now, because what if there was an explosion down the hallway and you didn't look at your evacuation map and you go the wrong way and you end up in a room that is just something has exploded and there's gas leaking everywhere and there's two men and you have to figure out which one to save, Kobayashi Maru style.
Okay. I'll take it.
Buckle up. It's Star Trek: The Next Generation, Season 1, Episode 19, Coming of Age.
Commander, you'll soon be getting an intruder alert.
What? That's something, sir.
Intruder alert, sir.
It's an old-style starship, sir. Constellation class, heading this way under impulse comm.
Number 1, kindly take charge of our guests until we have time to decide what we're going to do with them. Sir? Number 1, keep them out of my way.
Wesley.
Have the boy sent to the bridge, number 1.
My name is Wesley.
It's Wesley I wanted to speak to you about.
The boy?
My name is Wesley.
He seems to have developed some sort of special attachment to the boy.
My name is Wesley.
Did he say Wesley? The boy?
My name is Wesley.
What is the boy doing here?
My name is Wesley.
The boy. Where is he, please?
My name is Wesley.
The boy? He's outside.
My name is Wesley.
Wesley Crusher, report to the bridge. On the double.
Wesley is running through the hallway during rush hour. I don't think we've seen this many background actors in the hallways. And I think I mentioned this later in my notes, but like this episode and in the next maybe, or I don't know, one of these two episodes, I noticed a lot of scants again. A lot of scant uniforms.
Oh, I didn't notice the scants this time. But
I was surprised to keep seeing them this late in the season. I thought
I love it.
They kind of walked away from it, but no.
He's trying to catch up with his friend Jake Kurland to kind of express that he's sorry, because it sounds like something's happened. They've gone through a Starfleet test and Jake didn't score high enough. So Jake's gonna not make it to Starfleet.
Yeah. And this is just like an entrance exam for the entrance exam, right? They were competing to get a seat to test to get into the academy.
Right.
Jake is played by Stephen Gregory, who went on to play Chase Benson in 94 episodes of The Young and the Restless. And Dr. Kyle Beresford in Law and Order SVU.
I recognized his face, but I love SVU, and I did watch Young and the Restless, but he didn't.
He was kind of a strange-looking teenager, but he seems to have grown into his self.
Face.
Pretty well. Pretty well, yep. And despite being like number 2 in line on the D for a shot at Starfleet Academy, we never see Jake again.
While he's talking to Jake in the hall, he gets a call on the tannoy from his mom. And she's telling him to report to Transporter Room 8 because he's got to go down to the planet to finish his testing.
As Wes beams down, a captain's log informs us that we're in orbit of Relva 7 for this Starfleet Academy Cadet Challenge. And he's excited to also catch up with an old friend, Admiral Quinn, while we're here. But when Admiral Quinn beams aboard, it becomes clear pretty quickly that this isn't a pleasure trip. Quinn is played by Ward Costello, who made appearances all over television and movies. But this was kind of towards the end of his career. He was an old dude at this point. And he's accompanied by Lieutenant Commander Dexter Rimmick, played by Robert Schnecken, who became a highly decorated actor, writer, and producer. This was the moment when they beamed in. That's when I was like, oh yeah, there is that whole thing about interrogating Picard or whatever. When we first talked about the description of this episode for the question, I was like, I don't remember that storyline at all. But now it's all coming back to me. It's all coming back. It's all coming back to me now.
Well, this episode had like 3 storylines going.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And I have thoughts about that.
Me too.
So Admiral Quinn is like, we need to talk alone.
Welcome aboard, Admiral. I need to speak with you. Alone.
So in the ready room, Quinn gets right to it. He thinks there's some shit going down on the D, and he's brought Remick from the Inspector General's office to sniff out whatever might be wrong here. And after Remick is dismissed to start his investigation, Picard's like, Admiral, Greg, come on, we've known each other for years. At least tell me what you're looking for. But the Admiral doesn't budge.
He's just being super vague and super serious. And he says that his orders are to be followed exactly, and he'll be staying on the ship, and he walks the fuck out.
Meanwhile, on the planet, another fun establishing shot of the facility on this planet where the Starfleet Academy Cadet Challenge is happening.
Hey, we got a whole building.
I thought this was a really neat thing. Like, they could have made play sets of these locations.
I know.
And they didn't. Oh.
Wesley gets to meet some people his age. He meets Oleana, pretty girl, flirty. She's also going to be taking the test with him. And she's already heard of him. And he's like, you know me? You know who I am? And she's like, yep.
She's like, I have a poster of all the Enterprise bridge crew on my bedroom wall back home, but there's a bigger one of just you. She is. She's flirting hard.
Yeah, she is. She's like, I heard there was a really smart young man who'd be tough competition. And she's kind of jealous. Well, I won't say jealous, but she's like envious that he's working on the Enterprise and he's got practical experience.
They're joined by a young Vulcan named Tashanik.
I thought it Tashanik. I thought it was Tashanik.
Who's like, you look too young to be here.
Right to the point.
Yeah.
As a Vulcan. What the fuck are you doing here? You're too young.
And Wesley's like, well, I'll be 16 next month. They let me drive the Enterprise with my learner's permit.
Another young tester comes in, and this is like a sort of a bluish dude. And Wesley excuses himself to go talk to him. This guy's name is Mordock, and he's a Benzite.
Mm-hmm.
And
I had the Playmates action figure of Mordock.
Did you really?
Oh, yeah.
No, you did not.
I did. Allie, I owned all of that shit.
I bet you're kicking yourself now.
I am. Oh, yes, I am. Sold it all in like rummage sales and shit. Yep.
Somebody out there has got a Mordock.
Yep. So this is the first time we've seen a Benzite, right? So they're this bluish alien with a lot of ham on their heads, and they have this device thing that like is attached to their chest and then comes up.
It's like a harmonica.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. Harmonica. That is exactly what it is.
It's something to do with how he breathes, I guess. And it has this like smoke, kind of like dry ice, sort of.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a fun little gadget.
Yeah.
And then TAC Officer Cheng arrives to greet them, and they each sit at a computer terminal to kick off their exams. Oleana is played by Estee Chandler, who did a bit of acting work and then got into VisFX in the 90s. And she worked in VisFX on The Long Kiss Goodnight and Pleasantville.
Oh.
Yeah. Tashanik is played by Tasia Valenza, who did a lot of video game voice work, but I didn't know it until this very moment. She's the voice of the USS Shenzhou in season 1 of Star Trek Discovery.
You do not look as if you meet the age requirements.
Do you know me?
You have been confined to the brig. Query denied.
I had no idea.
Yep.
That's so cool. And Mordock is played by John Pooch, whose IMDb photo looks like a headshot from the Blue Collar Comedy Show. It's kind of what this guy's into now, I guess. He directed episodes of 10 Things I Hate About You, Ugly Betty, Scrubs, and he was the director of A Biltmore Christmas.
Don't know what that one is, but I think he is also the son of Gene Stapleton.
Oh, all right.
For those of us who are too young to know who that is. It's Archie. It's Edith. Oh, Archie. From All in the Family.
Yeah, see, I watched that in reruns on Nick at Night. I didn't get to see that on the original run.
I did. When I was a kid, that was something that my mom loved to watch, was Archie. Archie Bunker.
TAC Officer Cheng is played by Robert Ito, who goes on to play Harry Kim's father in Star Trek Voyager.
Oh, did not know that. Cool.
So we'll see him again. Back on the D, Remick is on the bridge watching everyone work and typing notes into his pad. And this is the worst, right? It's just a normal day at the office, but some jackass from corporate is breathing down everybody's necks while they're just trying to trudge through their day.
Literally breathing down his neck. He's like hovering over Data and Geordi and typing into his little fucking pad and making everybody uncomfortable and pissed off. And Geordi's like, look, we're just sitting here doing nothing because we're in orbit. Like, we're not going to do anything.
Finally, they've all had enough of this, and Riker, as their designated representative, storms into the ready room, intending to find out what the hell's going on here. So he's like, Picard, name tags off. What the fuck is going on right now? And he thinks he might be the one being investigated. And he straight up asks Picard about this. And Picard says no. But even if he was being investigated, Picard couldn't tell him. So we're not really sure who's being investigated or what at this point.
So Riker goes back to the bridge. Remick goes after him. And he's like, I want some answers from you now, Commander Riker. And Riker is still annoyed. And he's like, you know what? Not now. When it doesn't interfere with my duties. And he gets on the lift and he's just fucks off.
Yeah.
You know, Remick is doing that thing that millennials do. I think it's called mewing.
Okay.
You know how, because his jaw is clenched when Riker storms off, and he's doing that mewing thing. Millennials will know what I'm talking about. You know what I mean?
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not a young person.
I'm not either. But we talk about their millennials language, that skibbity
That's
toilet
not
Ohio.
No, that's not
sorry.
millennial. That's Gen Z.
Sorry. Let me
No,
rephrase.
that's not even Gen Z. God, I'm so old. That's Gen Alpha.
Jesus Christ. I don't know. But he's doing that mewing thing. Mewing, MEWING. Mewing.
Searching.
A trend where individuals, often teens, press their tongue against the roof of their mouth to supposedly improve their jawline aesthetics.
Remick was mewing.
What the fuck? Well, that's Skibbity Riz, Ohio.
No cap.
So Riker gets into turbo lift and he's like, oh, I'll cooperate when it's convenient for me. In the meantime, fuck you and your mom.
Exactly.
And he's out.
I'll be 16 next month.
Well, happy birthday.
Back on the planet, the computer announces the final question on the hyperspace physics test. Starship A is 100 light years away from Starship B, traveling at warp 8. This is one of those like classic questions that tries to trip you up with a bunch of superfluous information that has nothing to do with what the actual question is asking.
Yeah.
So
train A, train B. What time do they arrive at the station?
Right.
You know.
So this one is asking about the matter to antimatter ratio, which can only ever be 1-to-1 or...
Core breach is imminent. All hands abandon the ship! Repeat! All hands abandon...
Wesley picks up, he nails this one pretty easily, followed by Mordok and then to Shanik. But Oleana runs out of time. And she comments about like how nice it must be to just have all this shit come so naturally to you. And Wesley's like, oh, no way. I work my ass off. Like I study all the time. And she says, it's a good thing you're cute, Wesley, or you could really be obnoxious. And as she leaves, Wesley's like, did you hear what she said, Mordok? She thinks I'm cute.
Mordok's like, is that important?
But now at this point, I'm like, oh, shit, Wesley's got a hard on and he won't be able to concentrate on anything else. And he's going to bomb this exam because this girl got into his head.
I was thinking, oh, she's going to somehow manipulate him into helping her,
Uh-huh.
you know, because he's, you know, kind of impressionable. But,
Right.
you know.
Right. I'll show you a titty if you tell me what the answer to number 4 is.
I'll pop a titty out right here.
Back on the D, it's time for Remick to grill Riker. And I don't know if you noticed this, but it really bothered me. Remick keeps referring to Riker as Mr. Riker, not Commander Riker.
I did not notice that. I didn't.
And like, Riker outranks Remick. So in like military parlance or whatever, like he should absolutely be using his rank.
Yeah.
And an upper rank can call a lower rank Mr., like Picard does all the time, Mr. Worf.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're going the other direction, if you're talking to a superior officer, you got to use their thing, right?
Yeah, you would never say, Worf would never say Mr. Picard.
Right.
You know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Anyway, they get into the ready room and Riker performs the first on-screen appearance of the Riker maneuver. Allie, I think you got that one right for this week's Starfleet Academy Cadet Challenge.
Yep.
You get to go to Starfleet, Allie.
Woo-hoo!
You get to go to Starfleet Academy.
He's pissed. Riker's got such an attitude, and things get kind of heated between the two of them. He's like, yeah, I'm here, but I'm going to be difficult. And Remick starts to talk about some discrepancies in the captain's log, which is alluding to maybe Picard somehow didn't tell the truth or lied. So yeah, things get really heated.
This is a sequence of, it's like an interrogation montage as we go from one interrogation room to the next. And the way that they do this reverse shot trick, where it seamlessly moves one interview into the other.
Yeah.
I loved so much.
Me too. So he starts interrogating Riker, and Riker says, fine, proceed. And then the next thing you know, they're in engineering, and he's now talking to Geordi.
He's asking Geordi about Star Trek The Next Generation, Season 1, Episode 5, where the Traveler takes the Enterprise to the far reaches of the universe, and Geordi's trying to argue that, like, Picard was just following Starfleet orders when he allowed Kaczynski to do his experiment. Like, it wasn't Picard's fault that it happened. It was an accident. Then we're back in the ready room, where Remick is trying to get Counselor Troy to admit to Picard having mental lapses. And he says, I have the best mind. Captain Picard has the best mind. There are no mental lapses.
And Troy, again, she's defending Picard because saying, and this was the episode where the Ferengi were trying to fuck with his brain.
Brain! What is brain?
He was just being controlled by a mind-altering machine without his knowledge.
Each time Remick is like leading the witness toward making some kind of statement about Picard's fitness as a captain.
Yes.
So, like, okay, this is an investigation into Picard. Worf finds Wesley hanging out in an empty holodeck, and they have a conversation about the next phase of the Starfleet Academy Cadet Challenge, the psych test. Wesley is confident about all the other tests because that's stuff he can study for, but this is an unknown, and he's really worried about it.
I wouldn't think that Worf would have been the one to help him with this, but he was. His concern was that he knows that psych test is going to make him face his deepest fears, but he doesn't even know what his deepest fears are. So he's in the holodeck trying to scare the shit out of himself to try to figure out what his deepest fears are.
Yeah. Worf has a line here that really resonated with me, but not for the reason you might think. He tells Wesley, thinking about what you can't control only wastes your energy and creates its own enemy. And that really made me pause because fuck that, bro. Like, this is one of those hang in there kitten kind of poster sayings that dismisses people with anxiety, right? Like, if I could just not worry about things, don't you think I would have chosen that?
Right.
It's not a choice for me to obsess over the things that I obsess about. It's how my brain works. And so for you to say, well, you're just wasting your energy and creating your own enemies thinking about these things that you have no control over. Great. I'd stop if I could.
And you also have no control over that.
Right.
You can't control how you feel.
Yep. For this test, they use your psychological profile to create a situation based on each individual's deepest fear. And Worf's like, yeah, they really fucked me up. And Wesley's like, hold on, Klingon warriors have fear?
But Worf has a point. He says only fools have no fear. Klingons have fear. They just don't let it rule them.
And Worf's fear is having to depend on others for things, especially his life. And Wesley's like, but every day we do that here on the Enterprise. Like, everybody depends on each other all the time. So you overcame that fear? And Worf's like, no, not at all.
I still don't trust your asses.
I am always watching my back. So they missed the mark on the anxiety, but they hit the bullseye about dealing with fear. That you don't necessarily overcome your fears. You just learn to live with them, right?
Yep. That's a daily struggle.
Mm-hmm.
Back on the bridge, there's some trouble. As they're going about their business, they detect that there is an unauthorized entry into the shuttle bay. And they find that it's Wesley's old friend, Jake Kurland.
And, whenever corporate is around watching everything that you do, you really hope shit doesn't go sideways like this. But here we go.
And there's Remick just looking on.
He keeps piping up throughout this whole shuttle heist. And Riker finally is like, shut up and sit down. Let us handle this. Get out of the way. And rather than lock a tractor beam on it, which they could have probably done very quickly, Picard picks up the phone and calls Jake, and Jake's like, I can't face my father after this total embarrassment, so I'm going to go to Beltane 9 and join the circus.
I'm going to be a clown.
And we cut back to Jake, and he's doing, trapped in a box.
And he's doing
Yeah, pull the rope. Oh, God.
He's gonna sign on to a freighter, because I guess that's what you do when you flunk out of Starfleet, is that you're only good for trash collection,
right? Yeah,
garbage collection on space garbage collection.
Well, he proves pretty quickly why he didn't make it to the Starfleet Academy Cadet Challenge.
Damn, Sarah!
He fucking well, you can't even drive a car. He gets in the shuttle and he stalls the engine right away. And now he's on course to burn up in the atmosphere of the planet. It's no wonder this idiot failed the test. Again, Remick pipes in. Captain, you're completely responsible for that boy's life. And Picard gets to tell him to shut up this time. So they're too far away to tractor the shuttle or beam him off. Although the Enterprise surely could have just maneuvered closer real quick, but that doesn't build the tension, Sarah.
It's a good thing you're cute, Wesley, or you could really be obnoxious.
I'm cute! I'm cute! She said I'm cute!
So Picard does that thing you see in the movies all the time where the airplane pilot is taken off the table. So the tower has to talk some rando schmuck passenger through landing the plane.
And Jake's freaking out. He's like, help me, help me. Picard talks him through this cool maneuver. He's like, you're not going to die. Here's what you're going to do. You just need to calm yourself down and listen. You're going to take the nose of the shuttlecraft and aim it directly at Relva 7. And he's like, what? And then once he does that, he's going to monitor his speed. And then when it hits a certain point, he's going to have him restart the engine because he's fucking stalled the engine. And then when he reaches that point, he tells him to pull up hard.
When this works, even Remick is like, hell yeah! Woohoo, we did it! He's a bit emotional at this extraordinary save. Very surprised this trick shot worked. But then he's right back to, how did this child get access to a shuttlecraft? And didn't his training include discipline?
I almost felt a little bit bad for Remick because he's clearly never been part of a crew before. Because,
right.
This happens all the time on the Enterprise.
Yeah.
Basically, Picard had talked this kid through bouncing this fucking shuttlecraft right off the atmosphere and using that momentum to get out. And basically, he popped the clutch on a shuttlecraft.
Yeah.
If anybody knows anything about stick shifts, he popped the clutch. But I did kind of feel bad for Remick because I know he's just doing his job, being a dick.
Yeah.
But
yeah, we're supposed to not like him.
Yeah.
At first.
And I didn't.
No, absolutely not. Picard reminds Remick that young men do stupid things sometimes, but don't worry, he'll get a strong refresher in discipline. And Remick says, I'll note that in my report. And Picard has to hold Riker back from kicking his ass.
Mm-hmm.
Riker's like, let's go now, motherfucker. Star Trek fight, let's go. This was the scene where I noticed all the scants. So back on the planet, there's officers milling about the hallways where this Starfleet Academy Cadet Challenge is taking place. There are a lot of scants in this episode.
I watched this episode 3 times. I didn't note it. Surely I saw it, but I didn't note it.
Wesley and Murdoch are walking together when they encounter a gold shirt named Rondon, who has a package for operations, which is sketch to start with. We have is this the DoorDash of the future? Where's the package? You're not carrying anything. Anyway, he's looking for operations and trying to get directions, and Wesley points the way. But when Rondon goes to leave, he shoulder checks Wesley. And Rondon goes from 0 to I'm about to fuck you up in about 0.03 seconds. And Wesley's all apologetic. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to. It was an accident, whatever. And then Chang shows up, which is another suspicious flag. Mm-hmm. Is there a problem here? But Rondon just keeps throwing insults at Wesley until Wes notices that Rondon has webbed fingers, which he then uses to identify him as a Zaldan, a race of people who think courtesy is a form of phony social behavior designed to cover up your true feelings.
Jesus Christ.
So Wesley starts yelling back at him, and now Rondon accepts him, and they move on. I thought this was a little bit, not in the insulty kind of way, but the courtesy as a phony social behavior as very autistic coded as well. Why don't you just say what you mean and mean what you say? And this would be a whole lot easier for all of us. Mm-hmm. But we don't. We say, we cloak everything we say in some kind of zhuzh to try to make it sound a certain way or to make it not offend somebody or whatever,
Well, it's hey, I'm a nice person,
right.
That kind of thing. But then the Rondon is the complete opposite. You don't go to bullying either.
Yes, right.
You don't just go calling people names just because, there's a better way to.
I think it reminds me of the phony, fakey office banter. Good morning. How are you? I don't fucking care how you are. Why am I asking how you are? And you're going to tell me as if either of us gives a shit? I'm just being polite and saying, hi, good morning. How are you? I don't really want to know how you are. I don't really want to know what's going on in your life right now. This is a social interaction that we use.
Yeah.
In our culture.
It doesn't mean anything. It's just something that we do.
Yeah.
Nobody actually cares how you are.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't want to hear the real answer.
No, if you're oh, I'm miserable and they're
okay, good talk.
Yeah,
bye.
Right. I'm 3 months behind on my mortgage and don't know how I'm gonna feed my family and
or I've got cancer, or that
right.
kind of thing. And they're oh, that's too much. I'm out.
Yeah, I was hoping for a hey, good morning, how are you? I'm fine, how are you? Oh, I'm great. And then we don't talk anymore.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Wow. That's humans.
So Chang's congratulations, you passed the test. This was all just a test to see how candidates deal with other species and their cultures. But this is also a tip-off about some upcoming tests. Mm-hmm, because Chang says, not all tests are announced or what they appear to be. So your spidey senses should be up about now.
Yep. Wesley explains to Murdoch that, he's got webbed fingers, so that's how I knew to do that, to treat him that way. And Murdoch was well, I wouldn't have passed.
Rondon is played by Daniel Riordan, who you might know as Turbo Man from the 1996 hit Christmas classic, Jingle All the Way, with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
I love that movie. That's my favorite movie.
Turbo Man.
I am Turbo Man. Turbo Man. Get to the chopper.
He also did some recent voice work, including Hyrule Warriors, Age of Calamity, and The Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom.
Nope. I know what they are, but
I've played them both, but he's just doing English overdubs or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't tell you what characters he voiced.
In the observation lounge, it's Data's turn to be interrogated. And Remick establishes, you're an android, right? So you got to tell the truth no matter what.
The whole truth?
The whole truth and nothing but the truth.
truth.
Data says, I have no reason to lie. So then he talks about some information that's been hidden in the logs and reminds Data about his loyalty to Starfleet, above being loyal to the captain. And Data's like, that's not loyalty, isn't the issue. There's nothing wrong with Captain Picard's logs, and therefore there must be something wrong with your information.
I felt like this moment was a very Sherlock Holmesian moment, and I half expected Data to like click his teeth down on that fucking pipe at the end of that. There's nothing wrong with the logs or the captain, which means, my dear Remick, there must be something wrong with your... Next up is Worf. And man, I fucking love Worf in this moment. Remick is asking like about how some contaminant got on board the D, and Worf says it was an accident. And when Remick pushes, he says, "No, I told you it was an accident." And Remick's like, "You don't like me, do you?" And Worf says, "Is it required?"
I'm gonna totally fucking use that.
Yes,
Somebody says,
I died.
Do I need to? Should I?
Yeah.
Do I have to?
Is it required? So good.
Now it's Crusher's turn. And of course, he's going to try to push her buttons and try to hone in on their relationship and about the death of her husband and how Picard was involved. And he's just, poking her buttons to talk about her personal feelings. But she says that her personal feelings are irrelevant to this investigation and none of your goddamn business.
Then back to Picard himself, and Remick's like, "The Prime Directive. How many times would you say you've broken it?"
Prime Directive. How often have you broken it?
See, the Prime Directive has many different functions.
The Prime Directive
is more what you'd call guidelines than actual rules.
It's a very interesting proposition. I can see it all.
What about that episode with the Edo? You broke the PD just to save your hot doctor's son? And finally, Picard turns it around. He's like, "You've talked to everyone on this ship, and you haven't found a damn thing, and you know it. This ends now." I love that he was like, so talk to me about Captain Picard. He was responsible for the death of your husband, and yet you also want to fuck his brains out? Tell me more about that.
Bastard. What a dickhead.
Damn. It's almost like the two of y'all conspired to kill Jack Crusher so that you could get together.
You don't like me very much, do you?
Is it required, sir?
Picard goes to Admiral Quinn's quarters and confronts him. "Just tell me what this is all about." But Quinn says he needs more time. Remick is almost done writing his report, and Picard insists on being present for that report. Back on the planet, they're working on a dynamic relationships test, and Murdoch is really struggling, and he speaks this into the room. "Man, whenever we took tests, you had to be absolutely silent. There was no talking during tests."
Nobody can fucking help you, that's for sure. Give
hell
me the
no.
answer. You'd be disqualified.
Mm-hmm. Wesley gives him some encouragement and a nudge in the right direction, and Murdoch completes the equation and beats out Wesley.
The way he said it is like, don't fight it, relax into it and let it come by itself. I'm like, oh god, my dirty mind.
Well, you can't just shove it in without lube or anything. You got to relax it first.
If it don't fit, don't force it, just relax and let it flow. You know that song?
No.
It's an old song.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it's a real old R&B Motown song.
Chang comes in and he's like, "Bro, you almost broke the Guinness Book of Universe records. That was like the second fastest time on this test ever." And Murdoch gives Wesley credit for helping him. And Chang's like, "Yeah, that was an interesting choice, Wesley, especially since you guys are like neck and neck on this whole thing. Well, anyway, you have an hour break before the next exam." And this triggers Wesley's anxiety. It's the psych test. Back on the Enterprise, Remick arrives to report his findings, and unfortunately, he didn't find what the Admiral was looking for. Whatever that was, we still don't know. But he does mention that they have a sense of teamwork, familiarity, and a sense of family on this ship. And then as he's dismissed, he turns to Picard and he says, "This Inspector General gig ends in about 6 months. When that's over, I'd like to come work with you guys." And surprisingly, Picard doesn't shove his foot up Rimmick's ass.
But he also doesn't say anything.
Yeah.
And that speaks volumes. After he leaves, Quinn says, it's not his fault. He's just doing his job. But he's also saying, please don't judge me, your friend, too harshly either until I've told you what this is actually all about.
So the 411 is he and some others are suspicious about someone trying to destroy everything they've built up in the past 200 years. And Picard's like, Republicans. It's the Republicans again, right? We don't get a lot of details here, but now that he's sure Picard hasn't been affected, Quinn wants to keep Picard close to him by making him Admiral and Commandant of Starfleet Academy. And Picard says, the Academy? Children? No!
That's the worst place I'd want to. That's the last place I'd want to be. And he says, I'm not good at politics either. But he's going to think about it and give him his answer tonight.
I thought it was a little strange how quickly Picard, returned his trust after this admission of what he was like. Oh, so you went full QAnon. Okay. And now they're shaking hands and I don't know. I think the trust restored a little too quickly for me.
Yeah.
I want to promote you to Admiral, and I want you to take over as Commandant of Starfleet Academy.
The Academy?
Yes.
No! No!
Wesley and Chang are outside the door when Murdoch exits from his psych test, and he's visibly shaking, but he tells Wesley I'll be all right eventually. I just need a minute. So now it's Wesley's turn, and he goes into this room, which is empty except for a single chair in the center, and he takes a seat and announces himself to the empty room, but nobody answers. And he's got himself so worked up with this anxiety that he's like, okay, don't forget to breathe. Remember to breathe. In, out, breathe.
I thought for sure that this was going to be some sort of holodeck thing or whatever. But there's an explosion outside, so Wesley goes to see what it is. And there's nobody out there. And the computer over the tannoy is saying to evacuate immediately and that there's 65 seconds to seal off because there's something happening. So he starts yelling and goes towards the environmental lab. He opens the door and he sees all this smoke. There's some beam that's broken. There's a man that's pinned under it. And then there's another man off in the corner.
This is a Kobayashi Maru situation right here. They've got limited time before this room is sealed off because it's going to explode. And there's two people to save, an older man whose legs were smashed under another fallen pipe and another who seems to be physically okay, but totally paralyzed by fear in this moment.
Which one do you save?
Wesley rushes to the old man and tries to get the other man to help, but he's stuck. He can't move. So Wesley gets the pipe off the old man's legs and starts dragging him out while encouraging the other man to try to escape on his own. I can't do it. I can't do it.
He's like, you're not hurt. Get off your ass.
Just as Wesley drags the older man out into the hallway, the doors close and seal the other man's fate. Except that this was a test. Chang comes around the corner, and again, he's like, another excellent performance, Mr. Crusher. You're really good at this. And
God damn it, stop tricking me. Stop fucking with my emotions like this.
Right? The older guy gets up and dusts himself off and shakes Wesley's hand, thanks for saving me. And then the other guy exits the lab perfectly fine.
Chang explains that he had to make a choice, and he did. And there's no right or wrong. And that is his greatest fear, is that he couldn't make a decision like that when it came right down to it. And Wesley realizes it's because of what happened with his father.
Back in the ready room, Riker tentatively comes in to announce that Rimmick has left the building. Picard fills Riker in on some of the secrecy stuff, although he doesn't explicitly say here that they think there's something fishy going on in general, just that they wanted to promote him to the Dean of Students. Picard's like, Jesus Christ, Bill, could you imagine me with all of those children? And I wouldn't have you to run interference for me. like I do here.
But Riker says no. He's like, this is your wonderful choice. You'll be able to shape the minds of future leaders of Starfleet. He's like, and you're great with children. No.
But Riker realizes that he hasn't given his answer yet. Meanwhile, Murdoch has been selected as the candidate who will be entering the academy. And when Murdoch again tries to downplay his own performance because of Wesley's help, Chang says he would have had the higher score even if Wesley hadn't helped on that one test.
And he's the first Benzite in the Starfleet, so this is a DEI hire.
Oh, God. I do always love a first, though. Anytime that, we get like the first trans role on television or the first trans role originated by a trans actor in a movie or whatever.
Those are important and notable.
Yeah.
Like the first Black person who did this, or the first Black, because if it was common, then we wouldn't be noting it,
Right.
And yeah, the fact that he got the highest score is why.
Yeah.
And it's not because he's a Benzite.
Of course.
But that just happens to be something we can put down in history.
That's just what Fox News will say about it.
He was only hired because he was a Benzite. Is it because the color of his skin was blue?
Chang leaves the candidates to say their goodbyes, and Murdoch apologizes to Wesley. But Wesley says, you deserve to win. Besides, you would have done the same for me.
See, that's another thing, though, too. Is Murdoch is feeling unworthy.
It's imposter syndrome.
Yeah, but it happens a lot when you don't see a lot of people like you having those positions, and he feels unworthy. Like, maybe I didn't. Why should I be in this position? So maybe that was part of his deal.
Tashanik offers her congratulations, and Oleana tells Wesley he'd better be ready next year because she intends to kick his ass.
And also pop a titty out.
Picard is in his dress uniform now, and he bumps into Jake in the hallway, in case you had forgotten about him.
Yeah,
and they
totally forgot.
I know. Me too. And they have a quick exchange. Picard almost tries to have an after-school special moment with him when he says, I hope you learned that running away solves nothing. Da, 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 da.
The more you know. Jake's really sorry, and he thanks him for saving his life. And Picard says, that's my job, young man.
Picard then finds Wesley in the observation lounge, staring out the window, all up in his feelings. He feels like he's failed everyone. Himself, Picard, the Enterprise. Picard's like, you'll do better next time, right? You're only truly competing against yourself, You have to measure your successes and failures within, not by what I or anyone else might think. Besides, I failed the first time too, and no, you can't tell anyone. And Wesley's jaw drops through the bulkhead down to the deck below them. He's like, you did what?
You failed?
Yeah.
Everybody fails. Wesley's the only one putting that pressure on himself, though. Nobody else. His mom isn't.
Right. With that, Picard drags Wesley off to the Admiral's farewell dinner to disappoint an old friend. And we don't see that dinner, but instead jump to the transporter room where Picard is seeing off his old friend. And Quinn's like, I don't know, man. I've been in politics so long. I think maybe I'm just seeing conspiracies everywhere. Put a pin in that one, Greg. You might actually be onto something here.
Yep. A few more episodes.
Stay tuned. On the bridge, it's time to get back to work. Off to the next adventure.
Boy, I'm sure glad that's over with.
I'll be glad to be relieved of this cargo.
Me too.
It is done, and perhaps just as well.
Yeah, but I learned something today.
I sincerely hope that this is the last time that I find myself here.
You just don't get it, do you, Jean-Luc? You see, of all the species, yours cannot abide stagnation. Change is at the heart of what you are. That is the exploration that awaits you. Not mapping stars and studying nebula, but charting the unknown possibilities of existence.
This episode is a cornucopia of lessons.
Oh, I know. They just threw lesson after lesson after lesson, 3 different storylines, all sort of loosely Tied together, though.
Loosely is the word, because so we had Jake and his lesson about not running away from his problems. Wesley was facing his fears of making life and death decisions for other people. And he also learned that his true competition is himself, not others. And that's all under that like coming of age theme umbrella.
Also, though, I think there's another theme that does tie them together.
Okay.
And it's
connect coming of age with Admiral Qanon for me, please.
Well, that whole conspiracy thing is something else. But it's when you have decisions to make, it's what do you want for yourself? What do other people want for you? Or where do they see that you should be? And then also what you're ready for. Or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So one, Jake Curlin obviously couldn't hack it. And so he wasn't ready. And instead of facing that, he ran away. Wesley is trying, hard for this one spot in Starfleet. He handled it with grace. He didn't pass. And he handled it with such grace. And he knows he's going to try again. But Murdoch passed the test. Maybe he's not mentally ready for it, but someone thinks he's ready. And then we have Captain Picard and Admiral Quinn, who they think he's ready to be Admiral and to be, in a different position. And Picard is not. And so I don't know. Maybe those are the things that I thought maybe tied together.
That's interesting.
Like, I might be reaching, but
I don't know. I came away with feeling like these are two completely disconnected stories happening at the same time. And I don't remember on Watch the idea of planting the seed of a conspiracy inside Starfleet before it happens in that episode. I don't remember that at all. But if that's what they were trying to do, if they were like, well, we have this half story where Wesley's going to try to get into Starfleet, but it's not a full 45 minutes or whatever it has to be.
we need some more material.
We need something else. Let's just set, plant the seed of this other thing. I don't know.
No, I don't know. I think it seemed all deliberate in a way. But I feel like they all had decisions to make about their future or things that were happening. And there were 3 different scenarios.
Yeah. I do like the idea of the competition being internal, a competition with yourself, much more important than external competition, because our society is so dependent on competition for everything. And I have never been a competitive person. I wasn't a sports person. I'm terrible at selling myself on resumes and interviews. And I kind of despise competition like that. I don't like it. I think we are far more productive and creative and whatever the positive attributes of the goal that we're trying to achieve are better cooperatively than competitively. And that's just kind of how my brain functions. I've never been a competitive, I'm going to beat you out for this job kind of, I've never been that.
I'm competitive, but I don't think of it as a win or lose sort of thing. Oh, you didn't get it, so you lost. But I just think of it as it wasn't your time, or it wasn't my time if I don't get something, or if it wasn't just meant for me, or there was just somebody better. And I don't feel like it's a win or lose, but there are some people that do. I feel like there's some competition that can help you grow as a person. Like if you aren't competing against something, then some people need that to strive to be better. Otherwise, some people aren't going to have motivation. And there's a way to do it, like play sports and have good sportsmanship.
But again, I think the more important competition in that scenario is the competition with yourself to be a better player, to be a better person, to be a better whatever, than competing with the other team, than competing with other players, than competing with other applicants and that sort of thing. The competition being internal to you.
Well, so Oleana was clearly competing outwardly, against Wesley. But then I think Murdoch and Wesley had some internal competition that they had to overcome.
Yeah,
because they quickly made friends, but they were all outwardly competing against each other, all 4 of them.
But that cooperative spirit between them, I totally would have helped Murdoch with that question. where a lot of people in our society would have been like, fuck that blue guy. I'm gonna be the one to answer it first. It's a competition. I'm gonna win.
Right.
Yeah.
And I loved how everyone would not rat out Picard.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yes.
There's that loyalty, and the way that they work together was even something that Remick would have wanted to be part of, that family, especially after they saved Jake from State Farm from doing something stupid. You know, it's apparent that's something that's unique that they have.
Yeah.
But they were not going to give up Picard.
Yeah, I loved that a lot.
That's got to be a nice feeling to know, like, these people got your back.
Yeah. Yeah, and in such a short time that this family atmosphere has developed, and I believe it. I believe genuinely that these people would, like, stand in front of armies for Picard, you know?
Absolutely.
We can handle all the pleasantries later. Now, let's get down to business.
I am willing to pay handsomely for you. I think you've had a little too much to drink.
Now, what do you know about my money?
Your money?
The money he stole!
You stole his money?
Those vouchers I gave you were every bit as good as Latinum.
You can spend Latinum almost anywhere. Those vouchers are only good at your bar.
All right, we want to thank everyone that supports the show. We especially want to thank our founding admirals over on patreon.com/humanisttrek. A big special thanks to Russell, Ali, Peter, Sarah, Sherry, and Bruce.
Bruce!
Thanks, everybody, for supporting the show.
Thanks, guys.
Captain, Starfleet Academy is requesting an update on our estimated arrival.
Finalists, please take your seats.
I must admit you have a very fast mind. Once I realized it was a trick question, there was only one answer.
Although only one student will be chosen for the Academy, any of you could easily qualify. Candidates, good luck.
You got called to the superintendent's office. It's a story I'd like to hear.
Becca's back now with the answer to this week's Starfleet Academy Cadet Challenge for the episode Coming of Age. Remind us all again the question.
This episode features the first appearance of what interesting habit?
Ali said the Riker chair maneuver. And I said tea Earl Grey hot, and the answer is...
This is the first episode to feature Commander Riker sitting in a chair by lifting his leg over the back and straddling it.
Affirmative.
Well done, Ali. Yay!
Yay, I actually got one right.
Our listener winner this week is Nathan on Blue Sky, who guessed, has anyone guessed the Picard maneuver yet? I think I saw Wesley do it a couple of episodes ago, but maybe the first time Picard does it?
I had an opportunity to show the captain my superior capabilities, and I failed. I can never recover from that.
And thanks everybody for playing. All right, then next week we'll be reviewing Star Trek The Next Generation, Season 1, Episode 20, Heart of Glory. Lieutenant Worf is torn between his loyalty to the Enterprise and his fierce Klingon heritage when two Klingon fugitives take over the ship. What do you remember about Heart of Glory?
Nothing. Nothing specific. I just remember Worf being conflicted.
Yeah, well, I remember that being like an ongoing concern for Worf generally, but I don't remember this episode specifically.
Yeah.
All right, what is our question then for Heart of Glory?
Robert Bauer guest starred as Kunivus. Am I saying that right?
I have no idea. We haven't seen the episode.
Kunivus. I don't know. However you say it, don't come for me. I'm not fluent in Klingon or whatever character he was.
Kunilingus. That's his name.
Anyway, he previously was in a band with which TNG regular cast member.
What?
Okay.
The ones I know are in a band are TNG regular?
Yep.
Okay. Riker wasn't in a band, was he?
With his trombone?
With his bone that nobody wants to hear?
Well, we know that Data is Brent Spiner is a singer.
Yeah.
So it could have been that. And in fact, while we were at QuadCon in Omaha, we listened to some of his music from Old Yellow Eyes is back.
Yeah. So it's got to be him because I'm trying to think Patrick Stewart was not in a band. Worf.
Oh, I don't know.
Michael Dorn wasn't.
Michael Dorn seems like he could be a band dude.
Who else?
Well, it's not Wesley.
No, it's not Wesley. I guess Brent.
All right, Allie's gonna go for Brent. I'm gonna go for Michael Dorn then.
Really? Okay.
It's just so we have different answers, so it's not.
Okay.
We're not doing the same thing every time.
Unless it's Riker, and then we're both
wrong. That's very possible.
Shit.
Well, tune in next week to find out. And if you want to play along, you know how to do that. Head out to your social media, share this episode, use the hashtag Starfleet Challenge, and we will pick out a winner. Next time on Humanist Trek, Star Trek: The Next Generation, Season 1, Episode 20, Heart of Glory.
Glory to Yohisi.
Make it so, number one.
Humanist Trek is available wherever you replicate your podcasts. Follow us on all the social medias at Humanist Trek. Become a patron at patreon.com/humanisttrek. Open hailing frequencies to podcast@humanisttrek.com and visit our website, humanisttrek.com. Humanist Trek is a production of Sarah Austin Media.